This is called a dish of ice cream. A little boy around 10 years old entered a lower Manhattan hotel coffee shop. As he sat down, the waitress came over to him. The little boy asked, how much is ice cream sundae? The waitress said 50 cents. So the little boy reached into his pocket, counted the change. But in the meantime, other people were very impatient, and the waitress got a little bit nasty to the little boy. But then he asked the waitress, how much is it for just a plain dish of ice cream? The waitress was, oh, just 35 cents. So the little boy said, okay, I'll just have a plain dish of ice cream. The waitress went, got the dish of ice cream, put the dish kind of hard down on the table, and walked away. The little boy ate the dish of ice cream, finished. He counted the change, and he paid for the dish of ice cream. When the waitress came back, as she's cleaning down the table, she was shocked because besides the 35 cents for a plain dish of ice cream, there was 50 cents, a 15-cent tip for her. The waitress felt very ashamed. So the moral of the story is there's 3 points. One, they talk about generosity, they talk about gratitude, and they talk about kindness. Gratitude is the expression of the simple pleasures of life. That's gratitude. Generosity is the point that the child gave. Didn't matter how much he gave, it came from the heart. And the third point was kindness, and kindness means being mindful of others' needs. Thank you.
You know, when we are going to do these services, what Sharon does, we're invited to partake.
That's absolutely correct.
We're invited to partake. And then when we accept or not, but if we accept, we get what's called the order of service. This is an email, and on it is who's doing what. And I just said to Sharon this morning, because I was invited, I never received the order of service. Did you send it out? She's like, absolutely. And that's fine, because I have challenges with emails. Lots come and I don't see them. I'm telling you all that. I'm telling you all that because I had no idea what the first song was. And moments before I was going to stand up, I had no clue. What I love about being an inspirational speaker is that you're not supposed to prepare ahead of time. It's like I get homework and I don't have to do it until I get to the class, which works for me. So right before I stood up, I felt a pull towards talking about pride. And then here we get this song, which for me, and I hope for all of you in your own way, had a meaning, a pull. So if you don't know it, I'm a lesbian. And most people know that. And for me to say that out loud and proud and in public, I've been out for a long time. This is not how I started. I assure you. I hate to say it, but I'll be 68 in August. I came out when I was 30 and with struggles, with enormous struggles. And it was a process. It was a process that I knew nothing about counseling. I knew nothing about therapy at the time. I knew nothing about nothing. All I know was something wasn't right for me way back when. And the way I ultimately described it to myself is I started getting aware, and I think I was aware. I was good at blocking things out, like many of us, but starting to accept me and my colors. As time went on, I realized for me, it felt like I was walking around for most of my life in a pair of shoes that were too small. And when I finally accepted, slowly but surely, again, not an overnight process, but when I finally accepted, it was an unbelievable relief to be able to follow my true path, but in a comfortable way, with shoes that fit. And when I think back sometimes, and I do at this point in my life, when I think back, if I had not come out for my true colors, I don't think I would have been, I certainly wouldn't be here today. I shudder to think. I shudder to think that if I had lived out my life and I reached today as I'm reaching today, encapsulated, closed down, and going through motions so that I fit, which is the reason why I would not have come out, it would have been a very, very, I really have to imagine a very, very sad, sad life. And, you know, I won't belabor the issue. Well, let me just share a funny story about this. The funny story is that a lot of times, even to this day, when I discover something, I come out with a bang. I'm like, boom, here I am. And I just have to research it and do it. And long story short, I was living in New York City at the time. And I got involved very early on because I'm like, all right, I'm out now. What do I do? I don't know anybody. And what do I do? And so there were at that time a lot of volunteer opportunities in New York City, in Manhattan, LGBT opportunities. So I got involved at the community center and did a lot of different things with them. And so it was June. I had been out probably less than a year. But I had met people. I got involved in a committee, the dance committee. It was a blast. We did bi-weekly dances. It was like I was back in high school. I had a new opportunity because high school, I was kind of closed up. I did my sports, but I wasn't out there with everyone. And now I was like part of a dance committee. And I thought how cool, like I could be at a dance because I was still very, very shy. I could be at a dance, I'll know people, and that will make me comfortable right off the bat. And the plan worked perfectly. As a matter of fact, ultimately, that's how I met my now wife of 33 years. At any rate, Pride was coming up. And the center was, and still is, but was one of the biggest community organizations. And so they would start up this march. And it was called a march at that point, not a parade, even though it really looked like a parade, but because it had a very meaningful, almost political point to it because of the history of Pride. So I was invited by the center to march with them. And I said, sure, because everything just was like I was a kid in a candy shop. Wasn't thinking too far ahead of my own, whatever, feet here. And what the center did, because it was cool Pride, because it also was about feminism. And they would promote women. And so the center put about 4 or 5 of us holding the banner. And there were about 50 people walking with the center. And there I was walking real proud and having a blast and high-fiving. And the next day I got a phone call from the center. The woman, Stephanie, who was someone, I forget her title now, but she worked with the volunteers. And it's like, hey, Susan, how are you? I'm like, great. And she goes, guess what? Did you see the New York Times? I'm like, no. And so there was a pause. And I'm like, wait a second, Stephanie. She's like, because the center, we have our photograph on the front cover of the New York Times. And I'm like, Stephanie, don't tell me I'm on the front cover of the New York Times. Susan, you're on the front cover of the New York Times. I'm like, my father reads that newspaper every single day. Every single day. Panic. I met up with some friends. I needed smelling salts. I was just, with my therapist saying, oh my God, and like, life is over. Thankfully, this spirit world was with me then because there were 4 or 5 of us, as I said, and I was on the outer edge. So my impression was a bit blurry, thank God. So I got away with it. But I want to share this with all of you today because Pride is for all of us. It's not just for those of us who identify as LGBTQ, because we didn't have Q back in the day, plus. It's allies. And you know what? It's even for non-allies. I'm just opening this up for every single human being on this planet now, before, to come. Because Pride is about our true colors. It's about who we are. It's about embracing all of that. It's about being okay. Even if we're not exactly who we want to be, who we think we should be. I was reading this morning on Facebook. I scroll a little bit. I'm not overly scroll, but I scrolled a little bit and I saw that there was a comment. I won't go into the details, but this writer was basically insulting someone. And one of the comments, one of the parts of this comment, this insulting comment, was about this person she was targeting. You know, you're too tall. Now, this relates to pride. I'll be right there. I had a reaction to this because I didn't disagree with the facts of the matter, which I thought were facts of the matter in the description of the individual. But I really took exception to putting in, and besides, you're too tall. It's like, are you kidding me? Now, I take this personally because I have a niece. And she is now, well, she's been a while. She's 6'4". And she grew up with some challenges because of others. And came to start calling herself a freak. And I always told her she was beautiful. And only because of her modesty, she wasn't a model. And my niece ended up marrying a young man who's 6'5". And they make a beautiful pair. And this beautiful pair now have 2 young sons. The oldest of whom just turned 7. Who's a pip. And the 7-year-old, you know how they, with children, they kind of like look at you and they forecast how tall you're going to be. He's forecasted to be 7 feet tall. Right, gasps. I don't want my great nephew to have to feel that there's something wrong with him. So I took too tall or too short or too round or too black or too white or too female or too male or not enough or too both or multiple of gender, whatever. Give it a rest. And be yourself. You know, we talk about love is the highest achievement, and with love, we can do this and do that and connect and love others. Pride, for me, involves self-love. You cannot be proud unless you start cutting yourself a little bit of slack and embracing yourself. Our bodies are secondary, okay? We are spirits in a body. Get over it. Your body is what it is. If you're uncomfortable, if maybe you need to lose weight because of health issues, whatever it is, fine. But do your darndest not to criticize yourself, attack yourself, and give it a break. That's not who we are. That is not what we're about. What we're about is what's inside of us, what you feel, what feelings you have, how connected you are with your soul. Where is it? And sometimes it gets so distracted in this world because everything's going on simultaneously. We waste a lot of time with a lot of busyness going on, and we can have challenges connecting inside. I was a therapist, a psychotherapist for many years, and also a sleep coach. I pivoted when I kind of reached a point where I needed a change. Whether as a psychotherapist or a sleep coach, what I found with many, many, many of my clients was they had a hard time with quiet. Because with quiet, all of a sudden they got restless, distracted. They didn't know what to do with it. They didn't even know how to connect with themselves. And the distractions that many of us either grew up on or have been bombarded with as we've grown up, I guess can serve a purpose. That's why they're so prevalent. They serve a purpose to help us to distance ourselves from ourselves. And that's really not actually, in my humble opinion, or spirits, that's not what it's about. that's not, where our primary focus should be. Sure, you want to uh, watch a movie, read a book, do other things that social media, that's fine, but don't forget about your interior that exists, whether you in your physical body, as distorted as you may claim it is. When I was a kid, I had curly hair. Well, I guess I still do. I had curly hair and it was a disaster. You didn't know you had all that kind of stuff. I wasted a lot of time blow drying my hair, and I could have done better things with it, like just whatever, hanging with a friend a little bit more, or being closer to myself. You don't have to be perfect. Michelle claims that I'm perfect. Like I need things to be perfect. There's some truth to that, but there is, when it's imperfect, there's like, okay, whatever. You know what? I do believe that we can learn from doing things exactly that they turn out. We can learn, but we also get important lessons when they don't turn out exactly the way we want. And that does not mean failure. That means growth. That means getting closer to yourself and evolving. If you want to be able to connect with people in a more comfortable way, in a more forgiving way, in a more loving way, it's got to start with you, with all of us. I would never have been able to, going back to my life path and where I am today, I never would have been able to support the people that I supported over the course of my career and personal life had I not come out. I mean, I could have done probably some of it, but I was so uncomfortable inside that there's only so much one can do when you're just kind of out of sorts inside. I remember one time when I was training as a therapist, in one of the trainings, there was and even warnings, like if you're looking for a therapist could only take you as far as they've gone. Then it's stop. So that meant a lot to me at the time. It still means a lot to me, but it doesn't just have to be a therapist. We can personalize that. We can embrace that. Like, where am I? How am I feeling about myself? What am I feeling good about? What don't I feel good about? What are some of the things that have happened that I'm kind of maybe embarrassed about, or uncomfortable with, or I need to forgive myself over? I came up with two things this morning. This was not in relation to this talk, but it suddenly is relevant. The two things that I came up with that I have done in my life that I regretted, I felt so badly. One, I was a child. I was probably about 7 years old. I had heard from somewhere, maybe you've heard this too, that if you take a magnifying glass on a sunny day, and I'm so sorry, if you put it over an ant, you could set his hand on fire. And I did it. And I saw the ant get uncomfortable. And I was just like an oblivious 7-year-old saying, wow, look at that ant squirm. And all of a sudden the ant lit up and I was horrified. I couldn't believe it happened, and I felt terrible about myself. Now I will forgive myself for that and just say that was a child's curiosity. And I learned a lesson. I grew from it. I never, ever did it again. Very quickly, the one other one, I'm giving you all my secrets out today. The last secret of the horrifying thing I did was in college. I was still inhibited. I cannot emphasize to you folks how shy I was up until a certain point. And I was in college and I opened a door to a building, an outside door. And I knew there was a woman behind me, an older woman, probably younger than me. So she was older back then when I was 18. But she had dark glasses on and a cane, so she couldn't see. And again, I regret this. I kind of froze a little bit. And when I opened the door to go in, I didn't hold the door open for her. And exactly what happened. She walked into the door. And she opened the door and she couldn't see me. I was there horrified and I felt terrible. And I couldn't explain to myself how that happened, why that happened. I think I just felt a little bit frozen about what I should be doing. And she told me off. She told me off. She couldn't see me, but she told me off. And I just stood there, didn't say a peep. Felt, as I said, not good, but it happened. And I'm sharing that with all of you to say that none of us is perfect. We make mistakes. That's got to be okay. That's part of how we learn, an enormous part of how we learn and evolve. And then next time we can do better. So I'm going to conclude now by wishing each and every one of us here on Zoom and everywhere a phenomenal Pride Month to all of you. And for whatever might, in your opinion, might not be going or with you, going well with you, forgive yourself, embrace yourself, and be there for yourself with all the pride you could muster. Rainbow flag is a rainbow flag for Pride because it's trying to be inclusive. It's everyone. If we think a moment about the colors on the flag, when you put all rainbow colors together, it becomes white. And white is peace and feels, it just feels uplifting as I think about it. So I leave you with that today and thank you for your attention.